Okay, looks like I'm live. So, y'all know how this works. Drop your questions in chat and I'll answer them as they come in. Today, Mr. Peanut, I have a stomach virus. So, not doing too great, but I'm hanging in there. I should be fine. It's nothing crazy. But, needless to say, I haven't been my best today. What else do you want? Will the use of cock rings discolor the whole shaft or only some parts? So it's like a really weird discoloration pattern. Basically, you have like two different skins on your dick. You have like something that's more similar to what you'd find on your mons pubis, so like your fat pad, and then like 2 to 3, maybe even 4 inches up, it switches to like dick skin proper. And since it's such thinner skin, that discoloration builds up much faster. So like there's a very distinct discoloration pattern with PE where it's basically normal skin tone for the first 2 or 3 inches, and then you start getting that bruising, darkish, blackish color, and then your glands get more and more red as they get more and more blood flow. Nacho Macho. I'm 5 inches in length, and extending, I get to 5 1/4 at 3 pounds of tension. I'm getting gains, or the silicone sleeve is stretching too far up. Also, no vacuum in the cup. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. You're hitting strain rates, but you would know if there's a big pocket of air in the vacuum cup, hopefully, unless it's like, what's that stupid one called? It's like the Silly Stretcher or Quick Extender Pro, the one that's the big white cup that you can't see through, not the Phallicin. I'd rather not talk about that one, Fit Pill, but yeah, Hitman, I did see Hinks live yesterday. I tuned out after the first 5 minutes just to make sure he wasn't, going too wild on it, but yeah. Okay, Jamar, I hope you feel better. Me too. My question is, what are the pre-sex routine that you recommend for maximum temp gains for length and maximum temp gains for girth? So, honestly, if you do your full length routine before sex, you probably got about 2 hours while you're at peak length. So, like, you can plan around that. And then, ideally, you only really pump for like 15 minutes total. And at like, I don't know, you can do working pressure, but you might get some notable discoloration if you're trying to hide it. For me, I've been pumping up quite often before sex, so like my wife is into it, therefore it's no big deal. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm gonna blow my nose so I don't have sniffles the entire time. I'll be back in 3 seconds. But yeah, you should only really expect like maybe 1/4 inch in length gains, like temp length gains doing this, and you have to do the pumping as well to like fill in that space. As for the girth, it could be anywhere from 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, depending on how aggressively you pump, but it really comes down to how much you want to hide the edema or impact erection quality. But getting to Fit Pill Red, just saw the hard flaccid post, and some people, man. So to just fill you guys in, some guy is like out to get Hank for whatever reason because he hurt himself doing PE, and since Hank introduced him to PE, he's obviously the scourge of humanity and has actually said he will end up killing Hank if he gets the chance. So that's what's going on. I'm not going to really push too much into it, but like I've had my fair share of sickos online, but like I don't think I've ever had anyone actually come after my personal safety like that. So let's see. Is it okay to measure bone press direct length in pump, or is it considered cheating if I pump to 5 inches of mercury and measure right away? So that would be a way to track progress, but it's not going to be able to like write off as, hold on. It's a way to track progress, but it's not your actual size. I would not recommend doing that and saying I'm like, what, whatever, 5-6 inches bone pressed, use a ruler for that, but you can track how quickly you fill the tube in the first 5 minutes. It's going to be a good proxy on how flexible and how much more tissue you're building. Fit pill, writing those comments gives off insecure and mature. That comment gave me mentally ill. Like, I get there's going to be a lot of mentally ill people in PE, but when you are saying you are totally fine killing someone for something like this, and I twisted the wrong way, there's something terribly wrong with you and you need help. But, okay. TR, are you and Hink looking for more employees? I remember you saying a while back you wish Red moved closer. I live somewhat close to PA with a flexible schedule. So if Red moved to Pittsburgh, that would make my life a lot easier and I can give him more responsibilities. But he thinks there's no black people in Pittsburgh, and that is pretty accurate, if I do say so. That being said, we will need employees eventually, but we're like big fish, small pond right now. We have to get a little more professional and a little bit more organized on the back end before we can bring actual employees on, but maybe eventually. So, Tula, I tried standing pumping. I noticed two things. I felt more pressure at the same inches of mercury, if this makes sense, in a thicker flaccid after. So, if you think about it logically, all the gravity is helping feed that erection then. So, like, if you're pumping laying down, you're actually fighting gravity while you're standing, vice versa. Also, if you have any weird flex to your hips at that time, you could be limiting blood flow to your undercarriage, and that could be impacting pumping as well. Okay, there it is. How is the handle pumping different than the electric ones? Because I don't want to carry an electric one because of the fears of them taking out. I prefer to just get one from PMP, but wanted to know. So I made the majority of my girth gains with a manual handle pump. It's more of like the convenience factor of not having to top off pressure all the time, because it does it every 7 seconds with the auto pump. I actually been using the manual pump more just because it's more convenient and I can do it in the shower. So like you'll get the same gains approximately, like we're talking within the margin of error of effectiveness. So like whatever you feel more comfortable with and whatever you can afford, go for it. Forget PE, what's my hair routine? We'll get to that. It's nothing crazy. Okay, so Tula, back to his standing versus seating. He is a quarter of an inch shorter in the pump standing, maybe because we're shorter standing. Not everyone's shorter standing. I'm actually shorter seated anymore. It really comes down to how your hips position. So like if you have anterior pelvic tilt, you're going to actually cover some of your dick with your pubic bone. So that's probably your issue. So if you like flex or like, do a partial squat and then flick forward, you should be at full length. Okay. So how do we make the flaccid size bigger? There's a couple ways. One, increase more blood flow, which is by either fixing any residual pelvic floor issues or, one second, fixing pelvic floor issues, increasing just general relaxation down there, or like artificially do it with pumping, right? Then what most showers have compared to growers is more collagen compared to elastin. So if you have a live elastin compared to collagen, relatively speaking, you're able to shrivel up more because it's able to pull it tighter. If you don't have a lot of elastin to collagen, it just hangs looser. So with PE in general, you will build more collagen faster than you will build elastin. So most guys will become, to a varying degree, more showy than what they were originally. But I was a bit of a shower to start. Like my flaccid was like 3 to 4 inches then I was 6 inches long. So like that was relatively close to being a classical shower. And now I'm like 6.5 inches flaccid to 9 inches long. So like that delta's actually stayed pretty close, but So wait, I think I skipped someone. Eddie, if I'm 7x6 and want to pump, what size do you recommend? So at Peak Male Physique, we have 2 1/8. That's the 2.125. That's going to give you 0.6 of room to expand. So you're able to get 10% expansion. I've been basically using a 2 1/8 for like 3 or 4 years. I'm still about 6 inches girth. It's going to be good enough for you, at least 6 inches mid shaft. If you want to save some money, you can go up and get the 2.25 and then a pump sleeve, but there's going to be a varying degree of comfort because it's such a wider tube. That's also if you actually want to get that big, but you know, I would recommend the 2 1/8, and then as you fill that out, jump to the 2 1/4 in like 8 to 10 months, hopefully. Let's see. BD, I was wondering when your bone press stretch flaccid increase, so let's say you're 6 inches, which is a 5% increase from your beginning stats, should you be able to gain above 6 inch? Huh? Okay, I'm wondering when you should your bone press stretch flaccid increase. So generally speaking, bone press stretch flaccid is just a way to measure flexibility of the tissue because it's literally a stretch, right? And you can increase flexibility pretty fast. Like if you do my style of PE, you should see like a 2% increase of that delta. So if you go from 6, you're like 6 1/4 after you do my style of PE. That's how you know you've done enough work. So stretch flaccid really isn't that good of a proxy. Like I can literally train my dick to stretch to 10 inches long with enough beat down and training at this point at 9 inches stretch flaccid right now. But after like a week or two, it will retract back down to its natural stretch flaccid state. So if you're doing PE, stretch flaccid is a really good way to cheat gains. And there's some relatively notable influencer in the space that does that. But in general, you shouldn't really be tracking stretch flaccid for erect length gains. It will translate eventually, but like there's so many variables to it, I wouldn't even worry about it long term. Forsaken, why would he need black people there? So Red is black. Red also has a thing for black men as a gay man. So like, would you move to somewhere where they did not have your type of woman? Right? Like I would not move to Germany because I'm not into pale blondes, right? It's pretty simple when you put it like that. Additionally, as being a minority, you feel safer in numbers, at least that's what he told me. So like, it's not like Pittsburgh isn't a safe place. It's just like, there's not going to be people that he can relate to as easily compared to where he is now or like other cities that have a higher black population. But I'm going to get him to Pittsburgh. Okay, is there a realistic time frame or what should I do to work to get a 6.2 bone press stretch flaccid? So again, dude, if we are talking about you following like the interval length protocol, you should be hitting that like within a session. Let me just double check my math. So 6.2 divided by 6. Okay, so that would be 4%. So if you're in device, you should be 6 1/4 during your session, and that's when you know you are done. Honestly, I could probably go from 6 inches flaccid, stretch flaccid to 6 1/4, stretch flaccid in 2 weeks. If just it's continuous training. It's not actually gains, it's just degradation of tissue and then increase in flexibility. Okay, JB. Have you had thoughts on chemical PE? This is such an old thing. DMS, oh my goodness, DMSO plus PABA to soften the tunica. That thing was a terrible idea to begin with because you have to get through the skin, and the skin is going to absorb most of whatever you put into it because there's just a thick thing with a lot of blood vessels, right? So you have to get through that. You have to get through the buccal fascia. You have to then get to the tunica. So we're losing so much of that shit before it even gets to the tunica. So all you're really going to be doing is causing slight liver toxicity and drying the shit out of your skin. It is not worth your time, dude. There is like no real way to soften the tunica without taking something called like Xyliflex. But like if you do any PE with Xyliflex, you can rupture your dick because of how overpowered it is. I've seen transdermal PGE-1 might have collagen denaturing or collagen cross-linking blockage. So basically, it does not form thick collagen fibrils, but it does not impede collagen production. So you can get stretchier and stretchier while building more tissue, but it's a really hit or miss if it is actually efficacious. So Jamar, I'm curious as to your personal goals. I heard you said you wanted to be 10 inches in length. What is your girth goal, and how long do you think it would be to take both of those or make it happen? So I'm hoping it only take me another year to get to 10 inches in length, but no promises. For girth, that's going to take another 2 years to get to 7 inches, and that's like my realistic limit. But again, this really comes down to what my wife enjoys and like my own rationality slipping. Like to me, like there's no reason why I wouldn't really go for 12 by 8 sexually speaking, but like logistically speaking, it sounds like a nightmare, especially if me and my wife ever get a divorce, which I have no plans on that. It'd be like the worst thing that ever happened to me, but you gotta cover your ass in some regards. So 10 by 7 is probably my soft limit, and it's gonna take me probably another 3 years to do it. So what is my hair routine? So I'll just take it out. It's actually a bit gross today because it's been dry here. But first of all, I just grew it out. That's like half the battle is getting it to a length where it actually looks good. It took me 2 years to get to something like this length. I've been cutting it down to this length, if not a little bit shorter. But all it really is getting a good shampoo that doesn't absolutely wreck your hair. And then you get a good conditioner to fill it in every day. Comb it out. I've been putting a little bit of argan oil in it to keep down the frizz. But other than that, I just have really good hair genetics. Like, my dad still has all of his hair at, how old is that fucker? 63. Same with my mom. My granddad on my mom's side just started to lose his hair a couple years ago at like 84, 85. So like, for the most part, my hair genes are just phenomenal. So I can't really give you much more advice than that. Just have a good, healthy diet, get your sleep, and actually take care of the thing. Don't get men's hair care products, by the way. Always get the women's stuff. It's actually highly concentrated, so it works a lot better. Anyway, Nebby, how much gains did you gain with clamping, or did you gain all of your air pumps? So, I did clamping and pumping at the same time. So I gained a half an inch from clamping and pumping together, but I also gained a half an inch from just pumping. So really to me, it's a wash on effectiveness. Wait, that's not accurate. So I gained half an inch from clamping and pumping in about 12 to 18 months. And then I gained a quarter of an inch from just pumping in about 6-ish months. And then I also gained like a half an inch in length from just doing manuals in about 18 months. A half an inch in length, I meant half an inch in girth in 18 months just doing manuals. So it all works. It's just like varying degrees of time efficiency and efficacy, right? So Peanut, sorry to bring out another company name, but the hand pump on PMP incompatible with a Lelove cylinder? More than likely. It just depends if they switched their nozzle lately or not, but I'm pretty sure they come out of the same factory, so it should be the identical nozzle. I did have an old Lelove pump, but the nozzle went bad after 5 to 6 years. So, like, I can swap out the nozzle that I have as replacement pieces here with Lelove, no issue. Wait, I've seen progress with longer and overall fuller flaccid with the angio method. Do you any of that at all? I mean, my flaccid is like fucking ridiculous anymore, but I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. I don't believe in Angion other than potential erection quality, and if you really want to get specific, it's just doing cardio for your dick. So like if you do normal cardio, you'll probably get the same results. If you edge, you'll definitely get the same results. It is really not that amazing of a thing. It's a very overrated exercise overall. I don't know why it's gaining popularity again. Okay, Dave, how am I doing? I am a little sick, but I'm doing okay. Hank stretched me out a bit this morning, but you know, it happens. No big deal. Duck bought my ebook, but I haven't finished reading it. Whenever I use the extender at 3 pounds over the course of the session, the tension drops 1 to 2 pounds. Why? Well, you're stretching. So if your dick's getting longer, it doesn't need as much tension to stretch it. Therefore, you need to apply more tension to continuously elongate your dick. That means the device is working more than likely, unless you see an air pocket at the tip of your vacuum cup. That means air is getting in your vacuum cup. But for the most part, I am constantly adjusting my tension for the first 10 to 15 minutes when I'm using a high tension extender. So it's definitely working. After about 2 to 3 months, I'm seeing my first 1/8 inch bone press direct length gain. My bone press stretch flaccid has almost grown 2 centimeters since I started. So I'm not sure if you're doing any pumping, but I would recommend doing some pumping because to me, that's more of a sign after in like that macroscopic, I guess it's more like a midterm scale, but you're not building a lot of blood holding tissue while you're building a lot of length tissue, or at least making the tissue that you have currently sit better for length. So if you're able to fill in that new shape better with blood holding tissue, you should see pretty fast improvements. What are signs that you're growing? So first and foremost for me, just ridiculous flacids. Okay. Like this is also gonna be signs for like positive work indicators. So like my flaccid will continuously be floppy and big. I'm going to get erect super easily, like annoyingly so. And then like sometimes your skin gets actually a little bit itchy because like there's so much activity going under the skin. It's telling your nerves something's going on. And then like you should just have really good erections is another good way to put it. Just because there's a lot of activity in the area, you should be getting high stimulus from that. And then obviously if you're overworking it, it's going to be negative side effects. So we're talking low erection quality, harder to get up, less sensitive, and then like your skin's going to feel dulled out because your skin is collagen based. So if we're stretching our tunica too much, our collagen in our skin is probably going to have the same degradation pattern. So it's going to get real beat up, and then that's where you're going to lose feeling. So Forsaken, when I say I'm 6 inches flaccid, do you mean 6 inches bone pressed or 6 inches non-bone pressed? So I am like 6.5 inches bone pressed flaccid right now, holding it in my hand like this. Depending on what study you go off of, you measure differently. If you measure like some studies, I'm 7 inches bone pressed flaccid. Depending on my fat, and right now I am particularly lean for like my history on this field. Okay, I am about 6 inches non-bone pressed flaccid now. Okay, so I noticed some different lengths since I got in the measuring tape before. Putting before pumping, I was just under 7.5, and then 8 in a inch. Wait, 7.5 bone non-bone pressed, 8 1/3 bone pressed. After pumping, he is 8.7 bone press. Now I know my AQ is super trash. but this is a curved measurement. But yeah, that's the important thing, to like actually get good like measurements to start, so you can actually tell where the issue is. So like if you game super fast, it's probably erection quality, for example. Are 1 to 2 weeks deconditioning breaks enough for 1.5 years of PE? You're going to need probably 4 to 6 minimum. You probably don't need a deconditioning break right now, but like the thought process is it takes like 12 weeks for the Achilles tendon to lose 2/3 to 70% of its strength when held in stasis, right? So if we apply the same idea to the tunica, if we do half that time, we should lose at least half of our strength. Therefore, it's going to be twice as easy to gain. So it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks. But like I'm on week 3 of my decon, and I've been like really trying to get back to doing length stuff, but I'm not doing it just yet. Curtis, how can I stop edema? When I started, I could pump on the max in an auto pump. Now I can't pass the 3rd level with any pump, manual or auto. So first, if you haven't taken a break in a while, take like a week off, and that should like reset your edema response, because your dick can only stretch so much in a 6 to 12 week period. At a certain point, it's going to be so stretched out that it can't stretch anymore, and the only way you can really fill the vacuum then is with edema. So if you haven't taken a week off in the past 12, probably a good idea. Then what I've been teaching is something called interval pumping. You can limit how much time you get to pull in lymphatic buildup by doing shorter sets. So I do 5 2-minute sets. Instead of coming out every set though, I just immediately pump back up. And that should be enough to like reset the lymphatic response. Like you still get edema, but it shouldn't be significant until over the 20-minute mark. So TR, extending for 3 months now, 7 non-bone press. I've gone to 7.5. Congratulations. But I can't get there to a 7.5 on a normal basis. Would clamping help? Currently pumping 2 by 10. I guess you mean 10 inches of mercury as well. AM and PM. I wouldn't necessarily add clamping. I would honestly just stay the course, because like if you're able to get there at your max size, I can almost guarantee you're that big during sex. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Like you'll get to 7.5 probably in a month or so, like on the ruler, just with a normal erection. Show him the fatigue calculator. It might have missed my opportunity waking dream. But if you guys go to Peak Male Physique, what we are referencing is the... Let me switch to my other profile. Go to calculators or tools. We have the size calculator and fatigue calculator. I'm going to blow this up so we can see it easy. Basically, if we're trying to do easy peasy length gains and figure out what we need to get, if you're 6 inches long after your session, we're going to try to be between 6 and an eighth and a little bit over 6 and an eighth, to be between 2 to 3% longer. That shows some kind of change in fatigue is present to the tissues. Now, while in device, we want to be a little bit over 6 1/4 to just under 6 1/3. That's going to show that we stretched enough to put us in the proper strain rate to produce more collagen, or, you know, elongation, enough stress to produce more collagen. But if we go past that, we're going to have negative side effects associated with it. I'm just trying to figure out where I left off. I'm not touching anything politically motivated at this moment, not even if you mean political, but let's see. Personally, I can't even trust my own measurements at this point, because it's just a crazy jump in pumping versus not pumping. So if you mean that you're literally an inch longer after pumping, you got some major erection quality issues that you still need to work out. If you've gained this much in, let's say, 2 to 3 months, it was more than likely you had terrible erection quality and you fixed the issue. So Virus says he is just over 6 3/4 on bone press, and he has a mid shaft erect girth of 5. What size pump do I need? So let's go to the size calculator on Peak Male Physique. Same idea. So you're saying you're 5 inches girth. 10% bigger is usually what we recommend. So you're going to want a 2.0 cylinder. If you want to save a bit of money, let's see. It still recommends the 2.0 cylinder. It's a lot of room for you to fill in that 2.0. For comfort, I would get a pump sleeve, which is not in this little carousel, but you get the idea. If you are like bigger in the base though, you might want to consider a larger tube, but still you're probably going to be good with a 2.0 up until, let's say, 5.5. So if your base is like 5.5, you're still be good to get the 2.0. Okay, so is it safe to take L-citrulline continuously, or should you cycle like you would with creatine? I don't even think you need to cycle creatine, but I have not seen any need to cycle L-citrulline. It is just a vasodilator, but it caps out in effectiveness after 10 grams. So like you can take up to 10 grams in a day, but like after 10 grams, it's like those receptors burn out or reset, and it's going to take like another 6 to 12 hours before they're sensitive again. I take 10 milligrams of L-citrulline. I take 10 grams of creatine throughout the day. So like you're fine to take both. Okay, chat's picking up on this side. Sorry, so read them as they're coming in. Okay, how long are your vibration intervals when you're pumping with vibration? So I say you can do 10 minutes straight and then take a minute off, just turn it off and then turn it back on. You can only do 30 minutes total with vibrations without any like lingering side effects. It really is going to come down to like how much power the vibrator has and how severe the side effects can be, more than anything else though. Fit Pill Red, looking at compression hanging. So is 2 inches possible over the next 5 years? It is certainly possible. Let's see. I went from 7.5 to 9 in about 4 years. Granted, I did fluctuate a lot in size, so like if I was a little more streamlined with my approach at the very beginning, I can always guarantee you I would be at 2 inches now. What I teach is you can gain up to an inch in your first year, and then every year after that, if you're really consistent, you can gain like a half an inch of length. So if we just look at simple math, you can get 2 inches in 3 years, but let's just shoot for 4 years if you're really consistent. How many years to get to 9 inches? I mean, it really depends how big you are to start. I mean, it took me a decade to go from 6 to 9, but I'm pretty sure I could do it in like 7 years at this point, especially if I'm still like switching between girth and everything else. And I'm sorry to hear that you lost your hair at 19. Best thing I could say if someone else is in that situation is figure out other strengths. Like commit to being bald, for example, and then figure out other ways to make yourself stand out. Because like, yes, I love my hair, but like there's a lot of other things I love about myself too that I would bring to other people's attentions as well. So you have many strengths, weaknesses too, but you got to figure out how you can maximize your own market, like, dating market value in other ways. Just play the hand that you got. So, what manuals did you gain girth with? All right, I'm going to just say this right now. Do not copy me per se, but I did traditional jelqing. I personally think jelqing is effective, but it is so hard to get right for a lot of people, and there's such bad information out there on jelqing. It is just easier to call it something else, modify it a bit to limit risk, and then that's how I came up with diamond jelks, okay? And then it was basically a form of Jelks where you pinch the base a bit and then you just go up the shaft like so, very lightly. And that's kind of like a massage technique more than anything else. We're doing this maybe 40 to 60% erect. Again, I don't recommend doing this style now because of the risk associated with it, but that's what I did. Hello, Destroyer. Let's see. Fitbill, how does the fatigue calculator work? It is pretty simple, I would like to think. So, basically, all we're doing, and I'm pulling it up one more time, is that we are taking this number and then multiplying it by 0.02, not 0.02, 0.102, 0.104, and 0.106, and maybe 0.103 as well. But that's as simple as it is. It just makes it so you don't have to put that in your calculator every single time. Best way to practice edging just with your mind, or can it be done watching porn? I have definitely done it watching porn, but that's a good way to get death grip if you're not careful. If you're really serious about edging safety, get some kind of stroker or fleshlight so you don't get used to the feeling of your hand. And then really limit how much porn you're watching, like limit it to like 10 to 20 minutes at most. How do I prevent getting burnt by the heating pad? Make sure it's on the low setting. The one that I have has like an actual temperature setting on it, so like I can make sure it doesn't get beyond 115 degrees, for example, Fahrenheit. So you might just need to get a better heating pad. I use an infrared jade heating pad that like is for forearms. So I don't even know where it is at this point. I'm just trying to, let's see, move you over. Destroyer, thank you for the super chat a while ago, but again, our business model is to make all of our information for free, and then we can give you affordable products to use that information with no pressure marketing. So the best way to support us is to buy our equipment, our courses, our books, so that way we can continue doing this stuff for free. But again, thank you for the super chat. The problem with super chats is YouTube takes 50% of it. So it's not really good value for your money, if you ask me. Okay, Pavel, I don't think I skipped your question, but if I did, sorry. Is it easier to gain 1 inch if you start bigger, or does it matter? A bit of tough love, it's probably easier to gain 1 inch if you're already bigger, because to me, it's like a percentage-based thing. So like, compared to someone that is 4 inches long, a 5-inch dick is going to probably gain 20 to 25% faster just because of principles of scale, right? You have more to work with, therefore more can be produced. But at the same time, dicks don't grow linearly, they grow volume-wise. So you might grow girth, right? But like going from 5 inches girth to 6 inches girth is like actually twice the overall workload when you look at it from a volume perspective. So it's a bit more complicated than if you're bigger, it's easier to gain. But in general, I would say bigger dicks, if we're looking at from a percentage increase standpoint, saying that you can gain, let's say, 12% of volume every month. 5%, a 5-inch dick's going to just grow more with a 12% boost than a 4-inch would with a 12% boost. So, Lewis, what is your current opinion on interval pumping 2 sets versus longer sets of breaks? Are they basically the same if time under tension is the same? They are not the same. Mechanically speaking, interval pumping will break down, well, breakdown's not a good word for it, fatigue the collagen fibrils faster. So when you do intervals, you're actually producing the signal to make more collagen, which is going to lead to more tissue in the tunica albuginea. Then with longer sets, we actually see more of like the shape training aspect because we're talking about chronic dilation, and that's going to lead to shape change. So in the perfect routine, you'll have lower intensity chronic dilation of, let's say, 10 minutes a set, And then you'll have your actual fatiguing work with the interval pumping. So you get the shape training, and then you get the tissue building aspects. You could put them together, but it's probably going to be risking overwork. So I would recommend putting them into separate sessions or even separate days. But, you know, I haven't tested the separate days idea. Semi-erect stretches help me translate my flaccid stretch length to bone press erect length. Well, that is interesting. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but if someone wants to, you know, find actual evidence by doing it themselves and showing me pictures, by all means. I'm sorry, Jack Mirius. I said I didn't want to talk politics, but that one's funny. I might answer that when I get to it. B Cage, what do you think of Ray Pete's biogenic way of diet? I don't really know Ray Pete. The only way I know of him is because when I was doing DHT research, people were trying DHT cream on his site. So that's the only thing I know of him. I don't know much about his style, but like if it doesn't, my main thing is like people overcomplicate the shit out of dieting. One, figure out what source of energy is best for you, either carbs or fats. Make that your dominant energy source. So like for me, I'm much better on carbs. So when I'm not dieting, I'll eat a lot more carbs. Then you get a lot of protein, anywhere from 1 gram of protein to 1.25 grams of protein per lean body mass, pound of lean body mass, that is. And then just get your micronutrients, avoid foods that cause gastrointestinal distress, and that might take an allergy test or trial and error, whatever works, but that's really as simple as it gets. Are there any potential groundbreaking techniques or methods outside of vibration that has the potential to significantly speed up gains, or has PE essentially figured out? So we know what PE does, we know how PE works. What we need to do is how to figure out how to increase the biomechanical, not biomechanical, but like the biological factors for PE. And for me, the most glaring thing to figure out is how to increase stem cell density in the penis. Because like if we get more stem cells in the penis, we can produce more tissue. Bottom line is more workers, more cores. If we're talking about this from a computer science perspective, we can do more work in the same amount of time. So if we can increase our stem cell count in our penis 20, 30, 50%, I can almost guarantee you that will directly correlate to more gains of the same factor. I have no clue how to do that without doing like stem cell injections straight to the dick. And even then, there's a good chance that those stem cells won't stick. So that's what I'm going to figure out once I figure out all this pelvic floor shit. I have a very big to-do list, but that's one of my main things that I'm looking for. So, RFK Jr. is our next health secretary. What do you think of that? It's a huge mixed bag. One, I feel like there is a lot of issues with our current medical system, and like having such a, let's be fucking honest, psycho in there is gonna ruffle some feathers, and we might actually get some changes after he fucking tears everything apart. What I don't like is how he's calling out like semi-glutides as the root of all problems in America, because like it's going to solve a lot of issues with American health, which is obesity. In general though, I'm pro legalization of peptides. I'm pro like legalization of most drugs as long as they're regulated. But in general, it's going to be a mess because he's not qualified to run the place. It's just that simple. And I'm here for it at that point, just that specifically. But Hitman, I'm uncut and that holds up with foreskin and so sore no matter what HGI I pump at right now. So that's a little interesting. Are you having like issues with phimosis? Okay, so Forsaken, non-bone press flaccid is close to my, so my non-bone press flaccid is close to my erect size. No, not really. My non-bone pressed stretch, my flaccid visible is 6 inches. You are 7 inches bone pressed erect. That is not close. Like if we are talking about this in a height perspective, that's going to be the difference between being like 6 foot to 6'5", 6'6". So like, no, it's not even a fair comparison. Jim, isn't it risky doing 2-minute pumping sets when the PE long prove gains happened at 5-minute sets? PE long didn't prove shit other than that PE works, dude. So like, I think the PE long study was just made so that they could have some kind of thing to market. So you could get P shots and then buy a $500 penis pump and a $500 extender and then get the same results that everyone else would get if they bought cheaper shit. Like, it's literally a scam if you ask me. As for someone that has taken P shots, pumped dicks, use an extender, I can tell you now there is nothing amazing about the P long study. And you can tell Brandeis I said that. I have been bending my D to the other direction of the tilt for months. It's not working. So are you saying your dick is literally coming out of your pelvis to the right or left? Or are you saying that semi-erect bends are not treating your curve? If it's not treating your curve, a lot of the issues with Peyronie's disease is that it's not taking the new shape that you want, which is straight. So you need to wear like a extender, a low tension extender for an extended period of time every day to help straighten it out. If we're talking like your dick is coming out to the left or right, there's a chance that depending on how your pelvis is tilted will cause how your dick points left or right coming out of the shaft. Like, I have a right tilt to my erection, so it comes out a little bit to the right, but my dick is completely straight. That's going to be more of a sign that I have an issue with probably my right side of the pelvis. And like, if I'm just test now, I'm pretty sure my right leg is slightly higher than my left leg. So that's probably why. Okay, so I'm 5.5 inches girth. What ring do I use? And ironically enough, I have an unopened pack of cock rings right here. So these are the BFR rings at Peak Male Physique. We just got them in today, if not very soon today. This one is going to be literally for guys over 6.5 inches. And I don't know how a hair got on it so quickly, but like, it is the largest one. If you're trying to clamp with this, you're gonna need to be at least 6.5 inches of base girth. I particularly still use the medium size one, and I'm 7 inches base girth. This would probably be good for like 5.5 and up, but like, it depends on how tight you want the rings and everything else. The smallest ring is probably going to work, let's see, 1 1/8. Red just messaged me, said we didn't get the rings yet. They are out for delivery, Red. Let's see, 1.125, and of course, or is it 1/8? Dude, I hate Microsoft's fucking implementation of a calculator. How can you fuck that up? So you're gonna need to be about 4 inches girth to make this cock ring work for you for clamping. The minimum size for the smallest ring is going to be 3.5 inches. So like, you need to be slightly bigger than that to actually see some kind of use from it. And then the largest one, Red, I hope you're listening so we can get this on the site later. What is this? 1 and 3.25 times 3.14. And then the largest one, it will fit someone that is 4 inches in girth. So you need to be a little bit larger than that to make the largest one work. Now this can go behind your balls as well. We don't really recommend it, but that's basically the main idea. Is like, to me, you probably want to have about, let's say a 20% constriction. So like, if you are 4 inches long or 4 inches wide, you're going to want to be 0.8 times 4. You want a ring that would work for someone that is 3.2 or like 3.2 inner circumference. That's at least the numbers that I'm going off the top of my head right now. Let's see. Do you recommend a bigger tube if you have a bend? Yes, I do. It's more for comfort than anything else though. Like I have a slight upwards curve. I can get into any tube that I really want, but like if it was like, you know, then it might be a little difficult to shove that thing into a 2 1/8. But you really don't really, it won't be that big of a deal unless it's like you have a very stiff curve. Hitman, he's going to be hanging for the first time. Is it best to start with 1 pound and then see what happens after? I would start at 2.5 and then work up to 5 in your first month. 5 is where the magic happens for at least high tension stuff. But we start at 2.5 to avoid safety. And sorry, Hank has been messaging me. Also, okay. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Forsaken, how does a pump sleeve work? Did I bring one of those home too? Let me check my goodies. I do not have one on me at the moment, but basically what a pump sleeve does is that it just adds some first padding to the cylinder. So that way, if you are pumping and it's digging really deep into your pubic bone and it hurts, it's going to lighten that up a bit. Depending on the pubic bone and the pump sleeve is going to have different levels of padding. We have minimal padding with the pump sleeves at Peak Male Physique. Then what it really does and what it really helps with is like if you're in between sizes with tubes, it keeps your testicles out of the tube, also a bit of your fat pad. So it's really more for comfort and like making sure you don't suck in your balls than anything else. It can also help a bit with skin migration since it keeps more of your sac out of the tube, but anything else is not going to do like clamping while you use it. Like if you're, it would hurt more than anything else if it was too tight, right? Sorry. Also, can you guys hear that pinging? I don't know how good the noise cancellation on this setup is just yet. So, Curtis, I've actually stopped for 2 weeks and it happens now every time I go past the 3rd level of my 3 pumps. You'd have to elaborate on what 3rd level is. For me, if I go past 12 inches of mercury, it's going to really increase the edema response. So, like, in my experience, you want to be doing like, let's say moderate intensity more than high intensity for PE when we're talking about actual gains, because we get less negative side effects, right? Same thing goes for bodybuilding. Do more like volume work at a moderate intensity is going to be much better long-term for your joint health, and you'd still get very similar results going to high intensity without the risk of your joints, right? It's kind of a, I wouldn't say one-to-one proxy, but it's a good way to think about it. So Jay, is it possible to use vibrations with extending? How do I increase contact? So you can use vibrators with an extender, no problem. Going to get my goodies. Nice. So I do this pretty janky because like there's no real good way to show it or like without making an actual product, and I don't feel like dropping 30K on a product that may not be, you know, efficacious. But the idea is if we're trying to increase contact, you want to get this as close to your dick as possible. So if you're wearing an extender, you just put it on your dick. I got too many wires. All right, so that's your dick. This is the extender. What I do is I take the wrap it around this, around my dick. This is a neoprene sleeve from our all-day stretcher kit. Any neoprene sleeve will work. Main thing is you want to have it tight enough that it can't come out on its own, or but not too tight that it just like sticks to your dick, like it compresses into your dick. And what's up, Hank? And then what I do is I just imagine there's a vacuum hanger on, you put it on, that's it. You extend normally, you just turn off the vibrator every 10 minutes for a minute. All right. Nebby, do you think most women would be able to take 8.5 inches non-bone pressed after having time to adjust to it in a long-term relationship? You are 7.5 non-bone pressed and want to gain half an inch more, or should I stop? Okay, so that is tough. Long-term relationship, yeah, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but like if you will probably limit hookups. Like most women will see probably something about this long. All right, what you're trying to get to is that long. So that's the difference between being 8 inches bone pressed, or non-bone pressed rather, and then 5 inches non-bone pressed. That gap, that is quite sizable, right? It is almost as long as my forearm as a 6'1" individual. That being said, if I were you, I would get up to 8 inches non-bone pressed if you're in a long-term relationship already. But if you're not, really reconsider it. And I guess it also comes down to like your own body proportions. Like if you want to just look huge, you're probably going to have to really think about how big you are. Like, you know, for me, since I'm like 6'1", 220, being 9 inches does not look particularly big at my body fat, but you know. Destroyer derma rolling. Minoxidil, are you 5'8"? Are you 5'8", 178? I don't know. It's a peptide that is DHT blocking, but it blocks the activity at the hair follicle itself. So like you'd still have normal DHT production and conversion, but it won't fuck up your hair. The main reason why they stopped producing it is that the company that was researching it was bought, and then they just shelved it. No one really knows why. I actually have some of it here because of my own testosterone replacement. I am not losing this. This is my wife's favorite quality. So yeah, I have some for my own prevention as well. Have you ever done yoga for any amount of time? So first time I did yoga, it was P90X yoga. I was 14, as stiff as a board. So like it was terrible. Recently I picked up my version of yoga, meaning I don't know any of the names of the positions or anything else, but what I'm doing is I'm looking for basically where I feel the tension, and it's more like meditation with stretching than it is yoga. But like that's how I've been able to like fix a lot of my hip issues in the short term, is just by listening to my body, doing specific stretches, don't know the names, but to figure it out. Robbie Barter, I have just made my first pelvic floor video and talking about how fucking complicated it actually is treating it, and then I'm going to have to do multiple videos on explaining how, let's say you have type hip flexors and what stretches you need to do and how that relates to the pelvic floor versus someone that has a tight lumbar and how they need to stretch versus everyone else. So like it's going to be a 3 or 4 part series, and then talking about the neurological issues that you could have that cause hard flaccid, and then any other weirdness that could cause hard flaccid. So I need content, thankfully, but like this is a bit of a headache. Hitman. Personally, when I started off, I hurt myself and took I took a few weeks off because I was scared. But regardless, everybody here knows what happens when they start this journey. They can't understand the risk. I think there's just an issue, particularly with men that are, let's say, anxious to get to the point where they want to be and rush it, end up hurting themselves. Especially guys that have major size insecurity. Not saying that you do, but like most of the people that end up injuring themselves are the ones running out the gates, trying to, like, let's say you're new to the gym, you try to bench press 135 right away, and you hurt yourself because you never actually tried to bench press, period. It's just like a recipe for very high risk right off the bat. So that's why Hank and I take our time to like try to explain to people that you need to start slow and it's okay if you don't gain for the first month, because would you rather not gain for the first month and gain long term, or injure yourself right away and then have all these issues, right? But that part often goes unnoticed. H2Whoa. How can I safely gain length with only a high tension noose extender? So imagine this is your dinger. Imagine this is the noose extender. Your pedinal nerve is going to be at the 2-inch mark. Doing just one little loop is going to put a lot of pressure right on your pedinal nerve, right into your glands, and it could possibly sever it. So to mitigate that risk, use a thicker strap, and to mitigate it even more, even thicker strap. So like get as much of that tension spread out over a larger surface area, and that's how you can make noose extending safe. That being said, I know people sell vacuum cup conversions for most major noose extenders, since they all use kind of the same framework. So you could get that 3D printed part and then just use that on your extender with a vacuum hanger cup. Okay, Robbie. Also, how often do I take breaks? Every 8 weeks, and should I do feeder sets and use an ADS for a few hours? So I say 6 to 8 weeks potentially, but like if you're taking Cialis, it's going to be hard to know when to take it, that break. And then you could do feeder sets. I personally haven't tried to do just feeder sets on like, you know, these shorter breaks. I definitely haven't tried an ADS on these shorter breaks either. So you can try that out and let me know. Okay, BD, I'd pump at 3 sets, 5 minutes each. I go into pump erect, but every time I finish a set, I release the pressure. I come out of the pump quite soft. I'm not erect at all. That's totally normal. Just go and erect every single time, and that's good enough. So, unless you're watching like the hottest porn possible, you are not going to be able to stay erect without any stimulus, right? So, losing your erection's fine. It's that you don't want to lose that engorgement and expansion right away. Going in erect makes it that your tissue's already expanded, therefore it's much easier to overstretch to actually grow. Destroyer says he buys PMP products for Reality from Leviathan. I'm going to buy your books even though I'm a semi-pro at PE. So I set those books up to be good for all levels. So like if you actually want to learn the biophysio processes for PE, that's going to be in my book, at least from my understanding of the model. So like you at least learn something. Also, you might pick up, it's a good summary of like everything I teach. So like if you need to just like, you know, do a refresher, it should be a relatively quick read from what people told me. It's information dense, so there's not a lot of filler in it, but all right guys, I'm gonna try to cut this off at 3:15, so you got me at 12 for another 12 minutes. If I reach my fatigue target inch strain rate before my scheduled time for the day, do I stop or just continue to reach that time? On paper, what you should do is stop after like 10 minutes of reaching your fatigued size. Because that way you're like holding it at that shape for an extended period of time, therefore it's more likely to take that shape. Add in the all-day stretcher, you're practically going to be that long all day then. But yeah, there's no real reason to like do the hour routine if you're getting your workload in 40 minutes. And Forsaken is telling you guys to remember to like and subscribe. I would appreciate it, as this is like my business, but you know, no pressure if you just want to come here and hang out. That helps me too. So Male Manette, since I started vacuum pumping at 10 inches of mercury for 1 minute 10 for 1 week, 10-minute sets, I can't get hard anymore. This was 2 months ago. I paused since, but it didn't get better. Okay. Few things going on potentially. First, nerves. So like let's say you've had this erection issue for the past month or so. You're just going to have a bigger and bigger anxiety response the longer you can't get fully erect. So first thing is trying to chill the fuck out. That's going to help a lot, believe it or not. And then there's a chance that you cause some pelvic floor strain. Again, completely treatable. We just need to be a bit smart about it. I'm working on a whole video series on this, but like if you go on my YouTube shorts and then do the deep squat that I show on that YouTube short, that's going to show you where your tightness is in your hips, pelvis, the rest of that posterior chain. And that'll give you a good starting point on what you need to stretch to potentially loosen up your pelvis and then loosen up your pelvic floor at the same time. So Kenny started at 6.9. He's currently 7.3/4. Congratulations. Let's see. He's around 5.9 at this for a little over a year. So that's pretty good results, especially if you gain girth at the same time. So like if you put on half an inch girth, that is pretty good results in a year. I don't want to start drama, but I am going to just tell you what I think. Carl swears by vibrations on top of the extender. Why do you think it's overhyped? Because it doesn't do direct contact with the tissues. And like if you look at any physiotherapy research on direct contact vibration therapy, guess what? The tissue is in direct contact with the vibration plate. That actively stimulates the stem cells with those wavelengths. So if we're just looking at the actual research data and not some physics equation, that's what you need to do. Anything that just rapidly bounces the dick is just going to be a good way to get the blister on the glands because it's just a friction point. I really don't understand why people started putting the vibration device on top of the extender, but that's another discussion for another day. Okay, Desolate. The PMP pump and Apex extender. I injured myself from overwork. I've been resting for 2 weeks and I still have some lingering ache. How anything I can do to speed up recovery? Where is this ache? Like, is it at the base? Is it on the shaft? Or is it like in your pelvic floor? That's going to have 3 different kinds of treatments. If it's at the base, you might have aggravated, like obviously your mons pubis, but there's nerve endings there too. So like really, your best case scenario is taking breaks and resting longer. But if like it's in your shaft, that's a sign of fibrosis forming, and you need to be a bit careful with that. What was the other one? Pelvic floor. That's going to probably need some kind of stretching, particularly like wide, deep squats is a good way to get started. So JT says he's pro GLP-1 agonist stuff to help curb appetite of your big boned amigos, I'm assuming. Yeah, the shit's fucking nuts. Like, it is not fair dieting on this. Like, it has never been easier for me to lose weight at this rate that I've been losing it. So, Liz, if you want to access the Peak Mel Physique fatigue calculator, we go to Peak Mel Physique. We go to tools, and then we go to fatigue calculator. All right, so there's a little toolbar up here. If you're in mobile, it'll be in the drop down. But that's it. That's as simple as it is. All this stuff is free. We just need to do a better marketing of it. But off topic, but you seem to be a really wise man. I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you think derma roller works? There is clinical evidence of derma roller working. Derma rollers working, but it comes down to how thick the needle is, or like how deep the needle goes in the skin. So like for drug delivery, for example, you're going to need a relatively long needle to actually get to the dermis of the skin. If you use a shorter needle, that's good for exfoliation, and that's going to pull up a lot of dead, dry skin. So in general, derma rolling is good, but like depending what you're trying to do, you need a different type of derma roller. So like if you're trying to do, let's say, beard treatment, trying to grow in a Rogaine beard, you want a 1 millimeter long derma roller. Do it about 10 times this way, 10 times this way. Put on the Rogaine foam or the minoxidil, and that's basically it. For hair loss prevention, that's the same idea. Long 1 millimeter along the ridge of your hair, and then you'll actually probably see hair follicles start popping up. Destroyer, have you seen the study where hyperbaric chamber therapy increases stem cell count? I mean, probably, but like, who actually has the money for a hyperbaric chamber? So, okay, let's see. I'm trying to figure out a good place to stop this. Wow, I'm really behind, aren't I? Okay. If I don't get to you guys, I will be streaming again tomorrow, same time. So save your questions for then. Again, I apologize, but like, I'm a little sick and I'd rather not overdo it. Let's see. BKH, do you think having insanely high volume days once a week could simulate greater gains? Imagine doing a 30-minute extender and 5-minute pumps with vibes every hour for 12 hours. Please don't do that. I could see like the overall volume being potentially working for shape training, but like at that point you're going to fatigue the pelvic floor and it's going to make the rest of the week's workout shit because you have to spend 2 or 3 days recovering from the pelvic floor fatigue. So don't do that. Hitman, whenever I do pump, that line is always sore no matter what. When I pull back, it's sore. We're talking about his issue of his uncut dick. So don't know what it is, but honestly might be one of the reasons why I can't never pump at higher levels. So first thing I would do is like at that point, massage out that tissue, because if it hurts, it's more likely that you have tightness in that area. So if we can release the tightness a bit, it should be easier to stretch that tissue, therefore it won't hurt as much. Louise, head of PP turning purple under vacuum extending. That's completely normal. You are literally holding blood in there with a vacuum pressure. The important thing is not to like, let it turn black. And that's going to depend on how tight the vacuum bell is, how thick the vacuum sleeve is, how tight it's gripping. But in general, you should be fine for wearing it for an hour at a time. But if you're just getting into vacuum extending, start with like 20-30 minutes. Take a look at your glands, make sure there's nothing weird going on, and then continue on with the routine. Jim Maxim, do compression hangers grow the D differently than vacuum cups? Noose extender, Chinese cups, whatever. The compression feels different. Yes. So you are pinching like this right at the glands, right? So that's going to pull rather than pull from here. So there's a chance that you're not actually really stretching under the compression point, but everything behind it. So you'd feel it a little bit more in the ligaments and less pressure on the glands in general. Just because I see this right now, Pefon for Rogaine beard. I'm not exactly sure on the specifics, but 0.5 millimeter you would have to check to see if it gets through to the dermis. That's how it's going to have the best results. Like, I have really thick skin, so like 1 millimeter is probably what I need, but some people could get away with 0.5 millimeter. Okay, Sam, during the deload week, should we be doing anything at all? Was a whole week necessary, or you're young, could you do it in 3 or 4 days of rest adequate? You could probably shorten it to 4 days, but like just in case I just do a week, like you're not going to lose size in that week. So you keep your sensitivity and everything else. It's just a good practice to get into, to taking these breaks. 4 days is probably enough though. JT, I've been pumping for 30 seconds with vibration, then 2 minutes without vibration until I hit the 10-minute mark. Take a break for 10 minutes, and then I'll try to build up to 10 minutes straight. So like, I don't see any reason why you couldn't just go to 10 minutes straight, unless it's like making you want to come. Like, apparently that's a side effect. I didn't have that issue. But yeah, that seems like a fine plan if you're trying to just increase your time with vibration. Sam, please tell Perfect Square to come back to Reddit. We miss him. So Perv invited me to hang out with him in person. We're trying to work on the details. I don't know if he's ever going to be on Reddit, and I don't blame him for being on Reddit, for not being on Reddit. But Rowan, I've been doing 10 sets of 1 minute, then 8 sets of 5 minutes. Pretty comfortable now with 8 pounds. How do I scale from here? Can the pump sleeve hinder gains as well? So first, I would not do anything unless you're not hitting, strain or fatigue. So like if you're not getting longer, slightly longer every session still, then you might want to bump up switch out 1 to 2 sets of those with 10 pounds and then drop back down to 8, and you can just slowly do a wave progression, and it would take you 2 to 3 months to actually get to 10 pounds proper. But to me, if you're seeing gains at 8 pounds, you are getting the right strain metrics at 8 pounds. There is no real reason to increase the weight. Baby Peanuts just ordered the hand pump in 5 packs of rings. Cheers to gains. Do I only need to put one of those rings on close to the base? So if you're clamping, you're going to need 3 to 5 of these rings, preferably of the same size. If you're just like wearing them as a cock ring, 1 to 2. I really like wearing 2 for like retention wear. Is going to be good enough. Jacamirius, do you think a big D would be a plus for most women? Like 6-pack abs are a plus, but not a must. For the majority of women, it's going to be the same thing for guys. Guys like D's to double D's. Women are going to like big dicks as a plus. Like visually speaking, it looks better. It's a sign of, sexuality and power. That being said, it is not something that is a deal breaker for 99% of women. Like, they will take average just fine if there's other qualities they enjoy as well. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. I thought I could get through all of these, but I am tired. Save these questions for tomorrow. I will be on at 2 p.m. Eastern, or whatever time it was an hour ago in your time zone. I hope to see you then. Save your questions until then. Again, if you could like this live stream, that'd be great. No pressure. And I will see you tomorrow.